Hi, everyone. I hope you're doing well. This week's rollout video here for you is going to address the three sections of the spine. So we're going to address the upper part of the back, the mid part of the back, and the lower part of the back. I've been hearing from a lot of you having a lot of pain, discomfort, dysfunction, be it bilateral, be it one-sided, just hearing a lot of that. And I do think it's related to all the technology that we're utilizing right now. There's no way around it. If that is your way of being able to get to work, being able to communicate, in some cases find entertainment, stay up to date with what's happening in the news. So there's a lot of reasons why we're on our technology right now, and yet our human anatomy doesn't necessarily agree with that. So the first thing that we're going to address is we're going to open up the chest. We're going to use our larger ball. This is the Coregeous ball from Yoga Tune-Up, and hopefully some of you have it. Most of you have it. If you don't, you can use a similarly sized shaped ball. You can also place a bolster behind you, a blanket, something that is going to go along the spine, specifically more in the mid to upper back. So somewhere in the bottom portion to top portion of shoulder blades. So that's where I'm going to place it first. And then if you can have your standards and your larger size therapy balls nearby, and I'll show you how to relieve some of that pain with those. So the first thing we're going to do is open up the chest, which is something that gets pretty closed off as we're on our technology. So we're creating this sort of closed chest, rounded shape, and all the muscles in the back are kind of pulling and holding and trying and struggling to keep us in healthy posture. So the first thing we're going to do is just release the chest. So you're going to take that ball, you're going to place it just right back behind the shoulder blades, just a little bit down from that space. And then you're going to slowly lay down onto that ball. So as you're coming down and back, you're going to just let your head come down. If the head doesn't find the floor, you can always place a prop such as a block, a blanket, a bolster underneath your head. If your head is okay to come down, you can bring it all the way down to the mat, whatever you've got there. And then the first thing that you're going to do is to just let your arms open out wide. So right away you have a little bit of lift behind you, you have an open chest. Now for me, I like to bend my knees and kind of roll into an upper and a lower and a side to side, just to try to find what feels like it's centered behind my chest and what's going to open up that space. And then you're just going to start to take some deep breaths. Now this might be enough for you, and this is a great place to come back to depending on your usage of technology, depending on what you're doing throughout a day. So for some of us, we can come back to this every few hours to break up the workday and to keep the body happy and keep the chest open rather than rounding forward in the shoulders. And for some of us, maybe this is a once daily thing that we do at the beginning or end of the day. So you can choose how often you want to do this work. There's no wrong way to do it. And so to add just a little bit more attention, a little bit more release in the chest, I like to sit up just a little bit and take the hands behind the head. So you have a little interlace, and then you just start to open the elbows and then come on back down. So this creates just a little bit more space, more into the fronts of the shoulders, maybe even into the biceps, forearms, hands. And if that is something that you tried and you're just going like, no, that doesn't feel great, then you can always come back to just the arms open wide and kind of playing with a little bit of movement. So whether your arms are open wide or whether your hands are behind your head, you're just going to start to move a little to the left and a little to the right, feeling that therapy ball massaging the shoulder blades, the space between the spine and the shoulder blades, and furthering that lift up and open of the chest. You might add your breath here, inhaling over to one side and exhaling to the other. Then you're just going to come back to center, decide what you'd like to do with your hands and arms. And just offer yourself another 3 breaths. Let's breathe in very deeply all the way up into the chest. And then hold that breath there. Get a little retention. And then as you're ready, you're just going to open your mouth, exhale. See if as you exhale, you can soften your body around that ball. We're going to do that a couple more times. Inhale. Exhale to soften. Last one, breathe in. Holding at the top as you're ready in your own time. Exhale, open mouth. And so you can always pause any of these videos to stay where you are. If this work feels extra good to you, there's been many a time where I've spent a much longer time just lingering in this area, maybe feeling for some circles or moving around a little bit more broadly. And for today, I'm going to move on. So we're going to come on up and go ahead and remove the larger ball. Reach for the 2 smaller balls. Keep the larger ball nearby, or keep that that block that you may have had, if you have one, some kind of prop, because we might want or need it. So we're going to take the 2 smaller therapy balls right out of the tote. And then we're going to begin at the very tops of the shoulder blades. So we're going to place these balls so that they are connected to one another as much as they can be on either side of the spine. So you can think of your spine as like sort of a bowling alley lane, right? And then these 2 balls are on either side of that, just rolling down the gutters. So the gutters are the space between the other bones and the other tissues and your spine. So you're gonna start at the very top, the top of the shoulder blades. The balls will almost touch, and then you're just gonna lay yourself back. So you're laying on top of these therapy balls enough to let the weight of your body be compressing them. And so hopefully you feel that connection, and maybe this is enough, right? This is a good place to be. You can find some movement, some swing of the knees, some movement of the arms, right? Giving yourself a hug, letting yourself take a few little barrel rolls. And for those of you that would like just a little bit more, you can take that larger ball, you can lift up your hips and set it underneath so that you have more pressure and more compression. And then you can find those movements. So just finding a little bit of sway, a little bit of movement in the arms, little flexion, little extension, maybe some snow angels, and just exploring the movement in your shoulders. And then once you find a couple of movements, you can start to kind of come back to a centered place. If ever you feel these therapy balls really uneven, you can always reach back and adjust them. It gets a little trickier as we go down further. And so if you have a Coregeous ball, this is where it comes in really handy, because you're going to start to press into your feet just a little bit to roll your body towards the upper part of your mat. And while you're doing that, the balls are rolling down the gutter, right, of your spine. So between shoulder blade and spine, you're moving forward and back, up and down, giving it a little bit of a massage. And for those of you that really want to get in there, you can always lift up even higher than whatever's supporting under your hips and find the same movement. Right? So any amount of pressure that works for you is that pressure that you want to use. Right? So giving yourself a little massage. And then we're just going to start to roll down towards the bottom portion of the shoulder blade. Ooh, I got a little pop. So oftentimes I'll get a little free kind of chiropractic adjustment here with these balls, and it feels so good. And so we're going to do the same thing, kind of center, realign, find some movement. And this is quite a sped up version of the way that I would normally teach this in a workshop. So this is for you to maybe pause, spend a little bit more time in the area of your back, your spine that you might need. And so then we'll come back to center. We'll take a little bit of a down and up movement. A couple of deep breaths. Massaging in the lower portion between the shoulder blade and the spine. I like to keep my hands in prayer towards my forehead. It just feels better to me than having arms down by my side, but that doesn't mean that you can't land your arms wherever it feels best. Right? And if you need a little bit more, you can always lift up. And you'll find that you start to sort of get to the edge of your mat a little bit, so you can adjust and move things around. I like to use a blanket because it's sort of a sliding guide once you get to the floor. So we're gonna quickly kind of bring it down to the mid-back, thoracic spine. So we're kind of directly behind the rib cage, the lungs. And you can kind of land there for a minute and decide if you want to keep that ball. So at some point, we're gonna think about removing the ball. And you might keep it here now, or you might be ready to lift up and remove it. So see how that feels. We're below now the shoulder blades, just working in the thoracic spine. I like to call it the bra strap or bro strap. So kind of in that area where a sports bra might hit. And then you can take some of the same motions. Now we're starting to get more into the mid-back. So the lower body and the upper body can move and twist. And one movement that I like to do is to take the knees in one direction and the arms in another direction. All right, so you can find a little bit of a twisting action and see how that feels. And if it's best for you to stay here and just take deep breaths into the thoracic spine, into the mid-back, that's fine. And then once we've been here for a few more breaths, we'll just inch our way back so that we're moving on down the back. Now at this point, you might begin to think about removing that extra ball, the bigger ball, and then taking a few breaths. So we're getting to the bottom of the rib cage. And as we start to go down from mid-back to lower back, it's okay for those therapy balls to kind of fan out a little bit more. So in the beginning, we started with the balls really connected. As we go down, we get a little bit more of a broad amount of tissue. There's more kind of bony landmark at the shoulder blade. So bringing it down just a little bit further, it's okay if they kind of widen and separate a little bit, if that's feeling like it's serving you and feels good. And so at this point, when I get below the ribs, in my own practice, I like to switch out the standard balls for the larger ones. This wasn't always what I did, so if you try it and you decide you want to stick to the smaller balls to begin, that is totally fine. But I like to place these at the bottom of the ribs, not on any bones, not on the spine, but just in that sort of space between the mid and lower back. So I'll lay back onto those. And then depending what you've got, if you've got those bigger balls that are lifting you up a little higher, you can always keep a little semblance of a bridge pose and find a little bit more roll. Since you're further off from the spine, you have a little bit more room to kind of swipe and massage. You can also work into some pelvic tilts. So scooping the pelvis in, tilting it back, and then releasing it so that the tail kind of drops down. And then finding that scoop and then letting it drop down. So any of these movements, think about getting massage, you guys. So if somebody's, kind of rubbing this area of your back, where do you want them to rub and how much pressure do you want them to apply? And, it might be that you do one side at a time. That's always an option as well. And so you're just going to spend a little bit more time here before allowing yourself to roll up. You're going to come down to the low back and decide if you'd like to bring those therapy balls in just a little closer, or if you'd like to keep them where they are, if they're a little further apart. And then it's the same thing. So a little bit of movement, maybe a little sway, little partial windshield wiper, or that massaging like action. You can relax your arms and hands as you're getting into the low back and as you're getting into the lower part of the spine, the lumbar. And then just letting yourself feel the movement and feel what's happening. So keeping your mind into what's actually occurring with these therapy balls and how this feels. And as you come down to more of a centered space where the therapy balls are even, you can explore with a little bit more movement. So you can kind of trace the back of the pelvis, the upper back of the hip, and let your knees drape to one side as you swipe over to that side. And then you can find the same thing on the other side. All right, so bringing yourself back to a centered place, helping yourself up to a seat, and then just allowing yourself to feel what it feels like. How's the upper back feeling? How's the mid back? How's the low back? So you can come to a seat, close your eyes, and give yourself lots of breath. If you are one who decided to quickly go through the video just so that you could kind of get a sense, maybe you turn off this video and then spend a little bit of time in whichever area was a little bit more in need. You could also do the whole thing over again, but take a little bit more time. These are short 15-minute videos just meant to give you a little snippet of the work that you can be doing at home to take care of yourself. So I hope that this was helpful for you, and I hope that this bolsters whatever you're doing right now, wherever you are in your practice, yoga or otherwise. And thank you for joining me today. Namaste.